Even though we had offered them alternatives, but they had become too comfortable, too wealthy on feeding off state resources, that for some of them it was unacceptable. And so they've gone back, so their political masters have now aggregated them, and they've called themselves all sorts of names, including lions and tigers, and want to believe that they can continue to access political power using the old tools from the past, which is violence, and not trying to convince the people that they now have that the people should, vote for them or sway the people onto their side. What we have done in the last 4 years is that we've gotten most of the bulk of Edo people to have a stake, to see that they have an interest, a stake in our democracy through the way we have governed. So part of the threats of violence or noise about violence you hear is principally coming from those actors and their bosses. We say, well, we will come back to power by force using the tools we've always used in the past. It doesn't matter what the people say. It doesn't matter what the people want.
All right. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. When we started our conversation this morning, we took a quote from Bernard Shaw, and he says, an election is a moral horror and a mud bath for everyone concerned in it. And we have seen, this displayed in the build-up to the election, specifically the Edo, governorship election, as Kingsley earlier indicated. But you were quoted once to have said in one of the interviews you granted that you will tame potential lions and tigers who plan to derail or disrupt the conduct of the elections. I'm wondering, Your Excellency, if you have really mastered the peaceful act of taming lions, and all that. So if you have, how are you dealing with the issues of violence and ensure that it doesn't, it's not what bootmakers are predicting?
I think the way we've looked at it is first to emphasize the tenets, the real core elements of democracy, which is to say, look, rather than just sit out mudslinging, hiring thugs, get on the campaign trail. Go to every ward in the state. Go and sell your message to the people. Go and convince the people that you have something to offer and that that they can achieve their aspirations, their goals through the democratic system we have in place. And we've gone around the 192 wards preaching our messages and preaching peace, and say, look, at the end of the day, the best way to tame, the lions, the political lions and tigers is through your PVC, to ensure that you go in there, and because you are in the majority, they do not have the force, they will not have the force of people to undo what majority of our citizens have decided on. The second is to continue to appeal to the law enforcement agencies. I mean, it's quite interesting that even though I'm the chief security officer of the state, I've been attacked severally. When we went to the Inspector General of Police a couple of days ago, we listed 13 incidents of attacks by the opposition party against my party, PDP. And I said, look, if the opposition have claims, they should also present it to the public. But as Chief Security Officer, I have not asked police, the law enforcement agencies to go after them. I've not arrested people arbitrarily. Where the police has even gone ahead to try to do its job legitimately, they have found ways to try to go and get these culprits released and try to avert the court process. As I speak today, despite all the cases of violence that have been reported, not one has been prosecuted, even though I am the chief executive of the state. So it says quite a lot. And lastly, we've continued to preach the message of peace. When we had the meeting, the peace meeting at the palace of His Royal Majesty, the Omonobade Ukwu Apollo, I hugged Pastor Ize Iyamu and to tell the world that, look, you know, we're close, we mutually respect each other. But the problem is not with the two actors, myself or my opponent. There are other non-contestant actors. You know, some of them are political people, actors. Some of them have business interests. They are the ones who are propelling the violence in the state. They are the ones, interestingly, they have always been actors in the politics of the state since 1999. And this is the way they used to run the politics. So for them, the Obaseki style is very strange, and therefore it must be curtailed, because we have to go back to what we're used to, which is using the voice on the streets to harass people, you know, to try and enforce their wishes or desires.
All right, thank you very much, Governor. Again, just to note 2 points before we pop our next question. On Wednesday, when we had the candidates of the All Progressives Congress, Pastor Ize Iyamu, join us from our Benin Network Center, we did announce to our viewers that you would be available either yesterday or today, and happily today you are around. There were some issues that he raised that we said you will have the opportunity of responding to those issues. If you have an aid memoir, that should be helpful, but otherwise we'll remind you of some of the things that were said, you know, the character assassination or mudslinging that everyone is complaining about, that has also been the feature of this election. So just before I come to that, for the benefit of our viewers, the point that the governor made a while ago is as follows, that the two leading candidates permitting, without meaning to be disrespectful to the other candidates in the election, they know each other very well. And by the way, they come from two very prominent families in Benin. But there's no question about that. Everybody knows the two families. But, Your Excellency, one issue that came up from our conversation on Wednesday has to do with the claim that, yes, you are driving infrastructure, you are revamping education. They say you govern by MOU. That's the so-called Memorandum of Understanding. And that there isn't much that you have to show for it. What's your reaction to that claim?
For me, it's ludicrous. It's really, you know, laughable. First, as government, you cannot go into transactions, particularly with the private sector or private businesses, without having an understanding which is documented. I am not surprised because when I came in as governor, I couldn't find one investment which the state government made during the tenure of when Pastor Ize Iyamu served in government, when my opponent served in government. All the claims, all the investments they made using public funds were all bankrupted. And it shows that no thorough analysis, no deeply thought agreements were put in place before these transactions were entered. I put to him that you should show us one investment that was made while he served either as chief of staff or secretary to government in Edo State for 8 years that exists today. So So I'm not surprised that they do not understand the meaning and the import of having, agreements or memorandum of understanding as a basis for interacting or a basis for engaging the private sector. And it's not far-fetched. If you look at the backgrounds of my opponent, he's always been in government. He's never worked in the private sector. Never done anything outside of government. So, so he may be challenged in understanding what MOUs mean and why they are necessary. But let's even go to the MOUs we have signed. Every area where we have engaged with the private sector, is it in terms of electricity? We signed an MOU with partners of Azura while I was the chairman of the economic team, and that project was delivered, and it's there today, right? The bulk of the electricity there goes into the grid and not for our use, and as a result, we went back, signed another agreement with another private sector player in terms of Osyomo Power. If you come to Benin today, you see the construction is complete, and by next week, the switch on will be done. The evidence is all there because we've interacted with several other players, electricity regulators, and so forth and so on. If you, in terms of a modular refinery, it's there. What my opponent does not understand is that unlike in 1999 or 2003, the world has changed. Information technology has taken over. So there is an extent to which you can lie. Because facts can be checked. Pictures don't lie. The evidence is there on ground. So if our claims are true that we only sign MOUs and there's nothing on ground, why are Edo people cheering us? Why are Edo people, in praise of what we have done? Does it mean the majority of people too have been deceived by these MOUs? And that comes to the core of our politics and where we are in Edo today with regards to politics. But it's, to be scared is so dangerous for our political evolution. And so I'm not surprised that for them, the strategy is first negative propaganda, mudslinging, and violence. Not sit across the table and have very healthy debates, very frank, honest, truthful conversation about projects, about policies, and about the direction of our people.
Okay, Governor Obaseki, just a reminder that Nigerians are ranked as one of the most happy people, so they would always cheer, even in the midst of a gloomy coronavirus pandemic, Nigerians are cheering. But regardless, government is said to be a continuum, implying that if a preceding government initiates people-friendly development infrastructural projects, that succeeding government would always, carry on with such projects and, take it to a completion. But the argument has been that in your 4-year tenure, you seem to have ignored some laudable projects initiated by your predecessor.
Here again, it's really unfortunate that my predecessors could make such claims. Because, these are claims that can be verified where there's projects. One of them he claimed was the rainstorm project to drain a part of the city. I don't even want to talk about the procurement, the costs of that project. I've decided to ignore it, just like I've ignored so many things about, some decisions that were made in the past, which I'm now beginning to find out. That project was never stopped. I'm sure maybe it's the fear of what happened previously that, is haunting him, but I've never stopped that project. As I speak, that project is on. We're still paying the contractors on it, even though I have serious questions about how it was procured by him and the commissioner who did it at that time. He talked about the hospital project. I mean, the world has seen what happened. It's, despite the scandal related to it, that hospital is functional today. So I challenge him, say, which projects did I abandon? When I have, as government, gone to continue projects that were abandoned after the General Obamadia's regime, I am rebuilding projects that have been abandoned for 40 years. Why would I abandon those of a past administration in which I was part of? These are the things we must eradicate in our politics. Political actors, particularly people who should be statesmen, should just not conduct themselves the way some of them are conducting themselves. I mean, how can you just lie so blatantly? I mean, these facts can be checked. And you expect people to look up to you and show respect to you. These are the kind of tendencies that we must eradicate from our politics.
Sorry, Kingsley.
Yeah.
Sorry. Your administration has also been tagged as a rapper-given administration. I mean, indicating the quality of the services and the dividends of democracy you claim to have built. Can you speak on that?
I didn't get that. It's a rapper, or
Yes, rapper given tenure, where you dole out probably insignificant projects and things like that.
Well, here again, you see, you will always look at life from your own perspective. You only see things, from the way you know how to do things. So when you want to interpret what others have done, the tendency is to talk about it from your own prism, from your own standpoint, which may not, and usually may not be the reality. So let's take the core elements of our reform. In terms of education, where we have enacted a basic educational system, where we have, we went into an agreement with a technical partner and we've retrained almost all our teaching staff. We've given them the aids, the tools, the technology aids to work to teach our children. How can that be rapid, or how can that be a cover-up? Because we have 270,000 children in our school system today receiving that education. We have a portal. You can go in there and check and see these children, their pictures. We have data on their parents. So how can that be rapid? The teachers are there giving testimony. Is it the road networks? We just don't tie roads, we tie communities. We go into an area and we fix the infrastructure within the community. Is it the broadband that we've introduced? We went into another MOU with the main fiber provider, and they've laid 400 kilometers of fiber across Edo State. Can that be rapid? It's there. But these guys, in terms of when they governed, never even imagined that government could achieve this. So for them, it's a mirage. For them, it doesn't exist. And it's so wild where you are propagating, you're saying, this government has done nothing. And the people are looking at them and say, where are they from? Are they from this planet? Can't they see the buildings? Can't they see the physical structure? You are denying that a building exists. You are denying that a physical structure exists. Even if you want to deny, some policies. Today, we issue certificates of occupancy in Edo State within a 60-day time frame at no more than 50,000 naira. It never happened in Edo State. Since the creation of Edo till date, only 2,000 certificates of occupancies have been issued. In the last 1 year, I have issued almost 10,000. So for them, it's a mirage. But the people who have applied for them own them. So I think that's the fight. That's where we are at, and that's why the elections or the the activities leading to detention are so intense because there's such a fundamental shift that has occurred. And those actors who played in the past see themselves as highly threatened that after the 19th of September, they will not be relevant because today they have to defend, their past, their political past. I am not going in to ask questions. We have just gone out to do the things we told our people we were going to do. And our people are now responding. And so what's their reaction? Lie? Say what exists doesn't exist? Bring out your voice? Call them lions and tigers and tell them to attack the people. That's where we are. But there's nothing like the will of the people. They will be overwhelmed come September 19th.
Well, thank you very much. Just before we bring in our two analysts here with us on this, I wanted to take this question. How challenging has it been for you engaging the gear for what you refer to as the fundamental shifts in governance? And before the voting, are the people behind you in this challenge?
Well, it's been quite difficult because, governments up till now, the government had always run on a certain logic, maybe I'll say on a certain illogic, which is to say that once you're in politics, once you're in power, you are there because the benefits of power must accrue to you. So you are the ones that should get the contracts, whether they procure properly. So as a political actor, you get the contracts, you sell the contract. So a contract that you could have procured for 100 naira, you end up procuring it for 300 naira. But here comes a government that says, sorry, we don't have enough. Instead of procuring that contract at 300 naira, we will insist on 100 naira so that we can do 3 of those projects, not 1 as it used to be. Because the population is growing, there's a youth bulge, we have a social crisis, so we've got to put all we have, no matter how little, into projects for the people. Clearly, it hurts, because that is how, some of them have lived all their lives. So you say, what is your business? And they cannot tell you this is what they do independent of politics. So those shifts have been harsh. Some of the people, affected are close to you. Some of them are even family. So it's to that extent, it's been tough, but it's the right thing to do. That's the only way we can get out of the mess we are in, using democratic tools. Sorry, I just trying to remember the second part of your question.
Do you have the people backing you up in this challenging effort of engaging the gear for a fundamental shift, even though the outcome of the elections could, of course, give out the numbers? But in the lead up to the election, do you have the people who say, yes, what you are doing in trying to shift the gears is right?
I will be shocked if we have less than 80% of the people behind us. And the reason for this is as follows. First, you could see the rapid transformation in the social and business landscape in Edo State. In 2016, at best, 1 flight came into Benin every day. Today, not less than 7 flights coming into a city on a regular basis. People cannot be coming in such large numbers if something is not going on here. Today, you find that you go to the markets, you go to areas where businesses are conducted, and people are so happy they can see their businesses growing, because you don't find these touts, these hooligans, come to harass them, come to extort them. And so you can see that for most people, even market women, small traders, that burden of extra payment and extra taxation to private individuals have all gone. So how do you expect them to feel? Parents, Most people, people were withdrawing their children from public schools because no education was being offered. You can imagine somebody who drives a motorbike for a living, sending his child to a private school because, the public schools were not offering education. Today, these people are now moving their children en masse from private schools into our public schools. Not because the infrastructure has been improved, but because there is now learning and they can see the difference in the lives of their children. So all of this, they're not fools, they're not stupid. They know that they're beginning to benefit. They can see they have a stake in government, in governance. They have something to lose if some of these policies are derailed. And therefore, they've all come around. You can see they are the ones cheering us on. At our rallies, our ward rallies, I was amazed to see the amount of support we have across the state. Unlike our opponents who were rallying in local governments, and you could count how many people came out for those rallies. We did not purchase any crowds because we went to those communities and people came out en masse. The second aspect is that people also fail to remember that I have now moved into a much stronger and more popular platform, the PDP. The political DNA of Edo is PDP, in alignment with the region. We were struggling to try and sell the other party and the promise. And the people began to believe. And the moment that impunity and lawlessness was exhibited in the party, the people said, you know what? It's not about the party, it's about you. Wherever you go, we will go. And so what you have today is a groundswell of a very popular candidate going to a very strong party within the state. So I don't see where they're going to come from. The only way out is to do what they're doing, just perpetuate violence and create a perception of violence so that people either don't come out or the elections are postponed.
All right, thank you, Governor Obaseki. Thank you. We'll just pause you for a while.
In the state. So back to His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Edo State, in our many studios.
Very much. I believe some very, very interesting perspectives have been shared. Let me link the issue of demystification of governance with that of low voter turnout. In the past, you see, we just noticed that in Edo State, political participation was very, very low. Not because the people were not enlightened, but like was pointed out, they had become disinterested. For the average person to go out on election day, there has to be an incentive. What is the need for me? Why am I going to vote? What does this mean to me? What some of the actors in the past have done that reduced our politics to one where people come out to be paid to vote because they didn't see a stake. But today I can tell you that if we go in for the elections of the 19th, I have almost 200,000 to 300,000 parents who have a stake in my continuing as the governor of Edo State. And they will go vote their interests. We have thousands of market women and men, thousands of businesses who are going to come out to vote their interests because they have seen the difference that in the last 4 years, their businesses have prospered because of the changes that have been undertaken by us. So we're hoping that this election will address the issues of political participation in Edo State from a different angle than was in the past. And therefore, what's the opposition doing? Scaremongering, creating the fear that there will be violence, people will not be safe. So as a tactic to reduce political participation in the state. And I think that should be, noted. I don't see them being able to enforce the mayhem or the level of violence on that day. But that scare, that rhetoric of war is what they are propagating. The second issue that was raised I want to address is, what are these fundamental shifts? It's about institutionalization, shifting from a one-man rule, a godfather rule, to one in which there is a consensus that the people really matter. The people are the one who dictates, not one person. And the people dictate through institutions. And you can see that. For the claim that I'm not a political player, I'm not a team player, is wrong, very wrong. If anything, I'm more of a team player than a lot of the other political actors. What has happened is some personalities who have come into our politics, who either out of sheer selfishness, arrogance, have just decided to be impetuous, to allow impunity be the order of the day. How can a party or an institution called a party have its own constitution and is set aside? How can they set aside court judgments and expect that that institution will thrive? So what we've done as a government, what I've done as a governor, is to say, I am just an individual. Let me strengthen the institutions of governance. Let me strengthen the office of the governor. I will come, I've come in, I will leave, but the office of governor remains. So it's really sad when I see someone who has been a governor before deriding the office of governor, trashing the office he occupied, because in their minds, where they come from, they only matter, not the institutions. My assertion that we have 80% of the people behind me, you can prove it, the polls show it, provided those people are allowed to express their votes. They're allowed to, vote, and those votes should count. And you will see, because we didn't pay people to come out at our ward rallies. They voluntarily came out. In a place like Jetu, near Auchi, we had about 5,000 people in a ward rally. And when I looked around, I didn't see any hired buses. At the end of the rally, people just walked back to their homes. That is what politics should be about. Not, hiring fans or hiring followers and moving them from location to location in the guise that you are campaigning. Somebody talked about Shomole loyalists. It's a fallacy. If you look at it, the current government today, the governor, the deputy governor, the secretary to government, nobody could have been more of a Shomole loyalist than us. But when you see someone unravels himself, betrays a cause, deceives you, you then realize that, wait a minute, what is going on here? We all joined this cause, this political fight, because we said we wanted to emancipate our state. What I am doing today is what we agreed to do in 2007 or 8 when he came in. So, nothing has changed for us. Much has changed for him. And you can see that attitude he took to the national level, and you see it cost him his jobs. You talk about resignations. You have those resignations. Yes, in any political fight or engagement, there'll be two sides. He's decided, to play his politics the way he wants to play it. And certainly there were people, because we were all one political family, there are people who are aligned to him. There are people who share some of his own views and tactics about governance, that everything is purchasable, that people are expendable. But there are many more people who just know that, look, politics is about my interest, it's about some ideals, it's about some goals, and they have stayed with us, and majority of people are like that. So not everybody is purchasable. In terms of what we have done, creating a digital economy, a digital society, yes, digitization is most effective, is most useful when you have the energy behind it. But you don't have to wait till you have 100% of your energy source and energy supply before you start the process of digitization. And the fact that you do not have constant power does not mean you don't. And by the way, Edo, Benin City, is the hub of electricity in Nigeria, because we have a full complement of generation, transmission, and distribution. The bulk of the power generated, particularly in the Delta, are all transmitted into Benin, and from Benin they get redistributed or retransmitted across the country. So in terms of electricity, we've always had. But what we're doing, what we're saying is that for it to be effective, for it to be to reach our people, we need to have better control of the supply, and that's what we're doing. But the teacher tablets can be charged. They have solar charging terminals. You know, the tablets are very rugged. You charge, a teacher charges her tablet, and for 2 or 3 or 4 days, she can go ahead without having to recharge those tablets, and that electricity is available. I think what has happened is that while we've spent our time, our 4 years working for our people, rebuilding our society, these other guys had nothing else to do except just propagate lies, falsehood across the country. So it's unfortunate that some of those lies have stuck. But I just want to tell people that go on to authentic websites, go to our websites, go to websites of credible agencies to see what is going on in Edo State.
Governor Obaseki, I'm sorry to interject here. There's so much we have not talked about, but our time is fast spent. I will just ask you this question, because I know that it is everybody's desire to have a peaceful, violent-free and fair election in Edo State. And that's a new concept I learned, which is the concept of rival partnership. And it's been tested by Professor Douglas Dion, Professor of Government in Harvard University. He does believe that, violence, war can be averted even between a hegemonic power and a challenger. And I can draw analogies where this, has happened. U.S.-Soviet Union relationship, of course, during the Cold War, there was cooperation and confrontation. Even U.S. and China now, you see some form, of tension. If you look at the relationship between President Muhammadu Buhari and the immediate past president, the immediate past president belongs to a different political party, and in that wise, a rival. But when it comes to issues of national interest, both of them come together to agree. When it comes to issues of regional interest, both of them work together to agree. So do you think that both of you and other parties in Edo can have what is called rival partnership?
Yes, it is possible if we agree on some basic fundamentals. You can't have the rival partnership when you argue that something that exists does not exist, or you believe or you say that something that exists does not exist. So where do we start from? How do we even start reaching the rival agreements? So it's about values. It's about your approach to your politics. Yes, we must at some point in time, if we are talking about Edo and we are arguing that argument is that we want to make this a better society for ourselves and for our families, then why do we want to destroy it? I think for us, we are trying to prevent the destruction and decimation of our society. Here is a society, an empire, with a very, very proud people, and somebody or a set of people superintended a state where the children were living in hordes to go and because they were in search of opportunities across the world, and it didn't bother them. And today we're taking measures to stop that, and they are fighting. How do you agree on those? Where do you start the engagement from? So let's look at the issues. You know, like I said, they're very, very fundamental issues. We say, let's train our children, let's give them better quality education. Someone will say, yes, I will do it, but they say, where's the evidence that you ever, you were ever interested in doing this? You had the opportunity, you did not. So it's not about, I will provide water, you didn't provide water. No, it's about that you don't even believe that we should provide water. You're just mouthing it. Because all of these will still
What was indicating to us that time is ticking. We'd like to thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria. We appreciate your time and wish you the very best in the elections.